Welcome to the study session meeting of the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission. It is presently Monday, December 12th, 2022, 5:30 PM. We will begin with item A1, discuss regular agenda items, which will take us to item C1, consider approval of the November 14th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any edits, updates, typos, issues with the minutes?
Didn't see any.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item C2. Consider the request for a detailed site plan for a mixed-use development on a 3.62-acre tract located at 12099 Luna Road and take appropriate action.
Marcos.
Do we have any questions? Do we go up front or?
If they have any questions, yeah.
Commissioners, do we have questions for staff on this detailed site plan? On Luna?
Let me see which one that was.
Yeah, let's see what's,
That's the mixed
C2.
use.
It's the mixed-use, larger one on Luna. Question?
So it's apartments and then ground floor
Right.
retail.
was there anybody, I can't remember, nobody in the area replied with issues? Did you have to notify people on that one?
This application is a site
Because
plan,
it's
so
just a
there is
site
no
plan,
public
yeah.
hearing.
Right.
Well,
It's
I-
already zoned by right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a public hearing.
I did have a question for Allison. Allison, what do you think about like the retail component? What are those dynamics? So we always hear mixed reviews of multifamily with retail on the first floor. Is things changing in the market? Do you think that area is going to attract retail, or do you think it's possibly some of the spots remain?
I still hold firm that unless you're in the heart of true density, the retail on the ground floor doesn't make sense because it doesn't have enough parking and dedication to have enough customers. And so that's just a reality of it. There's always exceptions, like a sit-down restaurant that could serve the whole neighborhood and things of that nature. So it's twofold. So sometimes we allow for retail to be, but not the entire first floor. So you have to build to the reality of the market. So a lot of retail, the ground floor, I think Vitruvian's a good case, is there's still a component where it's empty, where you
Right.
see images or, a wrap of some kind of image. That's because it was built retail ready and maybe they converted to living. But as long as you're not having the assumption that it's going to be like downtown Manhattan where it's all retail ground floor, you don't have that density yet. So it's appropriate, retail specific, and
And,
depending on square foot size.
and if I may add to what Ms. Cook just mentioned, Commissioner Javala, before they submitted, as this is already in compliance with the previously approved concept plan, but they still had some pre-application meetings with us before they submitted the formal application for site plan. And we actually did ask them that question because it has been found over the years that it's not always successful having the ground floor retail. However, the applicant themselves were confident that they could.
Do they have anyone already in line? No?
And we asked them that too, but they wanted to move forward with the way it was planned. So that's how we accepted the application.
Yeah, I also noticed that their parking they had a lot of parking. I mean, it's structured parking, but there was
But
like
they also have some
almost double
surface
what we
parking.
needed, I believe. So I'm assuming that might be because of the retail. They're afraid that maybe they need that for the retail, right?
Correct.
So I'm gonna pull up both of these. So this is not the one I think that I had. Sorry, hang on a minute.
Brian, would you be able, oh, that's on her.
Is the applicant going to be here today?
The
Yes.
applicant will be
It
here.
will be here? Okay.
so when Mustang
was okay.
Station was supposed to have retail in it, and then they converted to apartments. The initial Mustang Station Phase 1, it was like on Dart, that was like going to be retail. Do you know what, like when in the process, like, do you remember, like, did they just decide before they built it, that wasn't gonna work out?
2012
Yeah.
or,
2012, they built the ground floor to be retail ready so they could switch to retail has the demand come.
Okay.
Demand has not come.
Okay.
So that's why you have the living still on the first floor
So
of
they,
phase one.
so they built it to do it later, they didn't intend for it to be retail at the beginning?
We wanted it to be retail on the ground floor because we wanted street activation as part of the station area code, and it's just part of future good planning. But the demand wasn't there. And so in order to not have empty units along the Dart and our first, splash at it.
Right.
So you have living units that later are built to where if the landlord wanted, he could convert it. But it seems to be leased up pretty well as living.
It doesn't show that the demand's even there, right? With all the empty spaces in the restaurant park, so it's probably wise. That's why I asked. I'm concerned that you're gonna have empty spots over there, so I'll make sure I ask the applicant whenever the.
So we do have another location. It's over there, south of LBJ. It's one of our first things that we ever built. I don't even know what the name of it is. It's over on the far west side, it's got that open space.
Portofino.
Did they finally fill up everything over there? See, so that's another place that's been in business and they do have people around.
They have some small appointment only or office.
Yeah.
Or photography studio, but it's not, I think, like in a planner's world, when you see all this activation at the street level, that
Right.
you're kind of thinking in your mind, you're not thinking, I can't wait to get the greatest insurance company. You never see anybody and they're tucked
Right,
away. It's
right.
not what we were thinking.
Right. So we've had that plan in place. That's been in place for how long? Portofino?
Oh, gosh, Portofino predates me. That was probably late nineties,
Yeah, okay.
early 2000s.
30 years, 20 years.
I mean, the idea of it's fantastic. It's in uptown Dallas, and even uptown Dallas on McKinney has vacancies. And that's a perfect case study of, you got a lot of density and you got a lot of mixed use and you got a lot of office and you're in a commercial business district and still somehow you have turnover. So I love the theory of it, especially if you're living above, you can go get food and your nails done and dry cleaning. But the way that retailers want parking and the way that things are set up, they don't always all work.
Right. Well, there's a lot of them that do around the area, not in our city, but in other cities. They work very well.
Yeah,
Oh, I always think a neighborhood bar would be the perfect thing.
yeah, like a Cheers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go for that.
Any other questions on Luna Road?
No.
All right, well, that was easy.
All right, thank you.
Didn't have to say.
All right.
I actually like their planting schedule and what they did with
I thought it
the,
was pretty nice.
yeah,
right?
I love the selection of the trees, the section of the plants. I mean, they did a great job.
I was thinking about you also when we were talking.
Well, good. Except for the retail on the bottom. I didn't have anything to do with that, so, okay.
And they're gonna have a mural too, right?
Yes.
Yes,
That's
I
right.
The
love
building
that.
looks great. I mean, the
Yeah.
building does look actually, it's a
Yeah.
pretty looking building, but question the retail.
Well, and off of Luna Road, is this, what backs up on the south of that? What is that right south? It's empty. So that's over there in the middle of a big field and on the back of
Future
that.
hotel's supposed to go out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Future. it's set up.
the trees also were back behind to the south quite a bit, or that far, all that big parkish area?
Yeah,
Okay.
they don't go into the ditch. There's a big drainage easement that runs back there also. But, yeah. I know there's a corporate office, or there's some office buildings.
Right, yeah. I just drove by there, but I just couldn't really figure out.
Once you go past the future hotel site, then it turns into like this office, kind of high-rise.
Mhm.
office building.
Yeah, okay. Ready?
All right. Well, that will take us back to item A2, D1, apologies. D1 for public hearing, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a detailed site plan with special exceptions for a multifamily residential development on approximately 1.28 acres located at 13290 North Stemmons Freeway and take appropriate action.
Yes. Any questions on this request? It's a detailed site plan that has two special exceptions. PD 86, the station area code, actually allows for administrative approval of detailed site plans. So if it weren't for the special exceptions, this actually wouldn't come before the Planning and Zoning Commission. But with the two special exceptions, P&Z actually has the final approval on those, so it won't go to council if it's approved or denied tonight.
So I'm just looking these two compared, the first one we just talked about seems sort of almost high-end, I mean, the way they were describing it. This one on the highway seems like it could be more affordable. Is this potentially affordable, more kind of affordable apartments? Is that, do you know where?
I
It's
don't-
market rate.
I know it's market, but I mean, they're building it to.
Pricing.
It's like 600 square foot, one bedroom's on a freeway, and they've got the ground floor with the garage, and just, the whole construction of it just seemed a little bit more scaled down.
Actually, that's also constrained by the area of the property. It's about like an acre or
1.28
less. Yeah.
acres.
So they are limited by their location or the amount of land they have, and they still have to meet all the open space requirements of the PD. However, staff also recommended them to go for the podium parking or the structured parking route versus providing a sea of surface parking, which actually increased some of the cost of construction for this project. However, in terms of the rent ranges or what they're looking for, that would be a good question for the applicant. However, it's not planned as a more affordable option.
Yeah, I want to say, but just where it's like right on the highway and just, it could be, okay.
Well, so I had, again, if you'll look at this, how, if you look on the west side of this, how your grass area gets smaller, 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 and you've got these trees literally right at the face of this place. And if you look at the elevation of this, they even have trees drawn that are right on, I think it's this one, I'm looking at the elevation. So I don't agree with those large trees planted in this small space. If they wanted to do a small one back here in the bottom, I think I'm at the right one.
Sure,
Yeah,
and I can pull up.
Off of Jet Street? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you see how this is, how it gets less and less? I mean, I think that we just have to be careful. I know I harp on this all the time, but this tree will be right in whoever's living on the first, this is a 5-story, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, with the
Four-story?
podium parking.
Or is it living?
So you're going to have tree on these people's balconies or in these people's faces here. I would just recommend smaller trees, at least on the back side of this. The same one as on the, if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, number 2 is in that situation and number 5 is in that situation.
Actually, Commissioner Bartle, I don't know whether we are talking about the same side. If you're talking about the I-35 frontage, that's kind of the front of the property too. No?
Well, is this 35?
If-
Okay, it's Stemmons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they are actually providing almost 30 foot from the I-35 frontage as a landscape buffer. So in our opinion, that's enough space
Are they going
for
to,
the
well, it
trees
doesn't
to-
matter with the buffer in the one side, it's where they plant them close to the building.
You talking about Jet Street, where they're right up against
No,
this?
actually, Jet Street
About
is
35.
okay. I am looking at Stemmons here. If you plant a tree there, right, and I don't know how far out you're looking at, it needs to be planted closer to the, if you're going to go, and you've got a, what one is this? It's a live oak again. It's my least favorite tree. Even if they put a red oak on the back end, but plant it out as far as they can get it, away from the building.
Sure.
Yeah, along the I-35 frontage, there's a 15-foot landscape buffer that's required by the PD for any site along that frontage, and they're required to plant trees every 40 feet. And so,
In the buffer?
yes,
Okay, so we're not talking about the one that's up against the building here.
the buffer runs the entire length of the
Okay.
property.
And so how far is that away from the building, that bottom one?
The buffer is,
Sarah, do you want to pull up the
Yeah.
plan
Yeah.
on the presentation?
Yeah, 'cause the
yes.
angle.
Let me move it.
It's gonna be too close.
I think so too.
Do you have a favorite species
You
in
need to
mind,
look at
Linda,
different
for
trees.
freeway screening trees?
Well, people love live oaks. I don't, because live oaks get huge if you'll let them grow. They're going to have to cut these down. Once they grow, they're up against the building. So they will be deformed or whatever. Yeah, I have lots of species. I mean, it would be great if we would do, I mean, they could do red oaks. Those are going to be a little bit smaller. They've got a live oak grows this way. A red oak will grow this way. And they will come up and they will be a better shape to go there. And they do have a red oak. They have a Shumard here, I think. No, a maple. A maple would be super there. A maple, I'm thinking of a red maple. So, I mean, I'm just trying to get it off of the building.
I think we will give that recommendation. You can provide that recommendation on a different species. They would be open to altering the species as long as it's a shade tree.
Well, and to play devil's advocate here, do they choose live oak in applications like this because you're looking for it for screening and it is an evergreen? So you're not going to have
Right.
their.
It is an evergreen, but it's not necessarily a good screening plant either.
I mean, but is that part of the motivation here? Is
Cheap.
because it
They're
will have
cheap.
leaves.
They're less.
The
Yeah, the
entire
red
year.
oak, the Shumard will lose, any oak will lose.
I mean, almost any other.
Anything, yeah.
yes.
Well, then go with a holly or something, I don't know. Probably a holly, not on the highway,
Well,
but,
that's not really the purpose here. We're not screening a parking lot. We are providing more landscaping along the freeway
Along the
frontage. That's
freeway,
also the
right.
recommendation of the I-35
Let
corridor
me-
vision
do you have-
study.
Do you have the picture of the real picture of the property there, up there?
Go to the elevations, the colored elevations.
Okay. Well, the rendering
Right
will
there,
show them.
right there.
But the renderings are artist renderings. It's
Yeah.
not to scale or showing exactly where the trees are
Well,
going to be.
so we're looking at, if that's 15 feet, I mean,
And you're planning in the middle, right? So you have, is that accurate? And you'd have
That's
7.5
just on-
feet on either side?
that's here.
Yeah, that's what they're showing.
Yeah, not a lot. Anyway, those are my recommendations.
Sure. I think that we
I
can,
just recommend we stop planting the great old big trees right up in front of a building that cannot grow, and let's get a different shape. So if you have a cypress, well, they lose leaves too. So,
And, you know, when you look at it like this, it's
does
not
sh-
effectively screening the upper floors, so maybe that's not the intent, but again,
no,
I'm
they're
just
not
posing-
screening, but they're gonna
posing
be
the
in
question.
in those balconies, they will be, the people will have to cut them within
Sure.
15. Now, will it be 2 years from now? I don't know.
I will
that-
say
that
the
would be-
two trees that are closest to the corner, this side of the building is all the amenity spaces, so the leasing office, and all the way up is amenities. And then these are their stairways.
Is this the
and-
Stimmons side?
Yes, this side right here. And so this will be their elevator and stairway.
Yeah.
And so it may not interfere with the balconies, those
That
two
one's
that are
okay.
closest.
These bottom three, yes. Well,
So I'm,
Yeah, the bottom three, there's a little bit more of a landscape buffer between the building. You can see here it kind of
It's a wider
increases.
space.
Yeah,
It's not, so the dotted line is the 15-foot line.
yes.
As you can see, building is farther set back at the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the one that you really have a concern with at the very bottom,
the very
that's
bottom.
the only one I can see that we can probably
Yeah.
request a change in species.
Sure.
And
The
I-
rest of them seems to be fine.
I will say if I'm reading this correctly, see how it has the 3 dots?
But it could be
It's a live oak.
a red
And,
oak.
and if I'm reading the key
They're
correctly,
talking
that's
about
a
red oak.
red oak.
Yeah, I think maybe
red
it is a
oak.
red oak.
Yes.
Have you- Well, a red oak will lose its leaves. Yeah, I mean, a red oak's fine, but they are huge also. That's better than a live oak.
Yeah, so I
So-
think all of these along this way, at least if I'm reading the key
You're-
correctly, are red
You're
oaks.
doing,
Check the legend on the right.
yeah,
hand.
so,
They are, I'm sorry, I
okay, then
missed
then
that.
those aren't evergreens, so, and live oak.
Yeah, they're, all 6 are
okay.
proposed as red oaks.
And they do
And the
have,
applicant-
they also had another tree listed, which I don't see on their plan at all. I only see 4, and this was in another area. Chinese pistache is okay, it's a great shape for that. Bald
The
cypress. it
bald
will-
cypress is the back
All of
corner
these will
back
lose
here.
leaves, yeah.
Yeah.
All these are deciduous. Yeah.
Well, the applicant will be present at the meeting, and I think
Okay.
that they'd definitely be open to those
But I
suggestions.
believe we kind of resolved that issue because wasn't red oak a preferred option than live oak? So if that's
It's a
what is
better
being-
option, yes, yes.
So if that's being proposed, I think we kind of resolved
And
that.
I'm not good on the feet,
comment.
but just, I'm looking at what it looks like on the plan here.
Yeah,
Sure.
but it will be
You don't want to grow
About-
into the building.
about 8 feet away at least, at
That's
minimum.
planted?
Yes.
Oh, that's right on top of, I mean, to me, I wouldn't recommend planting it in my front yard 8 feet away from the house. Unless it's a smaller tree, you want to, anyway, I'm not going to fight it. It's okay.
Were there any other questions on this project?
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item D2, conduct a public hearing, consider the request for a specific use permit for outside storage on an approximate 3.36 acre property located at 13998 Diplomat Drive, and take appropriate action. This is yours.
Fine as well. Any questions on this request? You'll note that staff is recommending denial. The request is for an outside storage area on the Manhattan construction office building site. The primary reasons that we're recommending denial are, one, the PD is very restrictive about outside storage. It's really not supposed to be located between a primary building and an adjacent street. This site has frontage on 3 public right-of-ways, and so it's really tricky to make outside storage work here. The other issue is that the size of the storage area is significantly larger than the building, and we don't consider it to be an accessory use.
What are they wanting to use it for?
Outside storage, they want to store shipping containers
Oh, okay.
that would have construction materials for their job sites. They take the container from the site to their job site, bring it back. No other vehicles or equipment are proposed.
And a little bit more background, some of you might remember when this project first came through the detailed site plan process as the Manhattan Construction's headquarters office building. Staff has always been very cognizant about this site having particular geographic restrictions with the roadways facing three sides and how open storage is a difficult option. And as a result, you'll see typical warehouse storage application was not submitted on this property for the longest time. When Manhattan Construction first submitted their application, it was purely for an office project or for their headquarters. And on their application, there wasn't any open storage requested or indicated for future. Otherwise, I mean, we would have told them the same thing that we are recommending now, which is this site cannot meet the zoning restrictions of allowing open storage. Also, given the amount of open storage they're requesting, it kind of supersedes the building square footage. Besides that, the city has received a letter of opposition against this application. I believe 4 out of which 2 are within the notification area.
We've received 4 prior to the packet being posted, and then 2 more came in today. 1 was opposition and 1 was support, and I have copies if anybody wants to.
And help me remember, Sarah, does the 2 opposition letters that were within the 200 feet notification area, do they meet the 20%?
Yes, and it's now 3 within the notification.
So that means that would require a supermajority vote to approve this SUP application, if you choose to do so, because there has been, as the zoning code requires, if 20% or more of the property owners within the notification area submits opposition against a proposed zoning application, then it requires a supermajority vote to approve that application.
What is a supermajority vote? And that's amongst the Planning and
Us.
Zoning Commission?
As well as city council.
And that means that, what is a supermajority?
So the people, I believe it's, for 9, it's 3/4 would be what, 6? So it would be 6 of all of the
So
members
they,
present.
so say no, and they went ahead and came forward anyway. Is there any sort of ill will on their side at this point? I mean, was it as contentious?
We kind of gave our feedback. Our suggestion was to reduce the open storage area. That way it's not the super majority square footage on site. But they did not want to entertain that recommendation, given that the reasoning behind it was they're proposing these shipping containers to be stored, and the size limitation, and the vehicles will have to turn around in the open storage area to drop the containers on site and take them out. So they did not want to reduce the size, so they wanted to still go through the process. However, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the latest update from the applicant is they were planning to attend the meeting, but they don't want to attend the meeting anymore because they just want to see it go through the process, but they don't want to.
The applicant was informed that we'd be recommending denial before the staff report was written, and I sent them a copy last week. When I spoke to them this morning, the staff report in combination with the opposition letters, I think has dissuaded them. I'm not sure, but I encourage them to still attend the meeting. I explained that staff recommendation is only a recommendation. P&Z and council will hold their own public hearings, and that it would be really important for someone to be here to advocate for their case. So.
However, they might not be here tonight. So to answer your question, we do not know whether that means that they're just trying to see if the application makes it through. However, is where we stand from staff recommendation.
How much would they have to reduce it for to gain a recommendation?
We recommended that at least make it where the extent of the open storage area does not go beyond the building's primary facade.
And so that the square
10%,
footage-
20%, what are you talking here?
About 10%, I'd say.
It may be more than that. I
20.
think the storage area is like 8,000 square feet larger than the office building, and we really encouraged them to get that area to a square footage that was less than the office building, so it could be considered accessory. And shifted over so it's not forward of the building,
Right.
so.
Did they
said
have
that
a-
would render it.
Do they have a date they wanted to start construction?
The office building is already constructed.
It's there.
Yeah.
So is this the air, the photo that we
Vacant
have?
space at the south,
Okay.
so also they are right now on a TCO, or
Yes.
they right now have a temporary certificate for occupancy because the original detailed site plan had landscaping, they had proposed the southern area to be sodded and then landscaping along the perimeter of the property with trees. However, when we went to do the CO inspection for the office building, they hadn't installed any landscaping on the vacant portion of the site. And I believe that was the reasoning that they wanted to submit for this SUP application and see if the SUP gets approved before they do landscape installation. So it's kind of a, they're in a waiting pattern to see if the SUP goes through, then they will do the whole thing. Otherwise, they will probably finish just the landscaping that was part of the detailed site plan.
And the final CO won't be issued until all the landscaping is installed.
So what you're saying is this would be acceptable if it was a smaller size because of the size of the existing office building?
Because the site's primary use was the office as a land use. So when we, from a planning standpoint, when we consider use to be primary versus accessory, usually your accessory use is less than the primary use. If you don't go within this PD, which requires a specific use permit approval for any open storage irrespective of the size, if you look at our base zoning districts or our base zoning ordinance, or our comprehensive zoning ordinance, light industrial and other zoning district that do allow open storage, maximum is 15% of the building square footage that you can have open storage. Beyond that, you still need to get an SUP. So that's kind of a rule of thumb, that your open storage definitely should not be more than your primary building square footage, and the ballpark is about 15%.
So they're applying for an SUP for this
Open
size.
storage.
Size of open storage.
And the use itself, because the zoning requires any sizable open storage, even if it's 10 square foot, to apply for SUP.
So is there any practical application objections to this type of use of the land, or is it just the statutory zoning? Does this
I think
do
the
any damage
citizens-
to the community?
I
by-
think
by
the
having-
citizens' letters would speak most strongly to that.
I didn't see those, okay.
Yeah, there's one interesting one from Mr. Davis, very detailed, went and looked at other locations and showed what site storage meant, and they are all just construction sites. I mean, they're just, if you look at it from above, they're not just like trailers being stored, they are like, they all look like
Construction
active
material?
construction, I mean, just look like, just like a construction.
Do they own this property?
Yes.
It's all one lot.
And what would, I mean, what is the use of, I mean, because you talk about a 20,000 square foot space and there's still sizable amount of green space like next to that. So is that something that they would develop in another way at some point? I mean,
Their
like,
original plan, or what was told to us during the detailed site plan, was they had plans for doing building expansion for their office building, but not immediate future, like 4 or 5 years in the future,
they were just retaining the land for future use, potentially
expanding their office building.
And then I also have a question, like, I know that this sort of is fairly close to the I-35 corridor. Does this particular area have any part in the visioning studies that we did? Because
No, this was outside of that vision study.
barely, I would think, right?
This is
I
part of the
think-
west side plan.
Yeah, I think from a long-range plan standpoint, and even if we look at the PD zoning itself, the reason we are saying that the PD is very strict for open storage is those are the type of uses or accessory uses you don't want to see as the main focus of the property or being totally visible. So there are like additional screening requirements, sometimes barns required, if you have any visibility, or basically acting your building as the main buffer. This side, we understand, is difficult to accommodate all of that, so we were still going to accommodate if they could reduce the size of the storage. However, they weren't open to that recommendation.
And like, I mean, some of the letters, which I skimmed, but the gist is that the sentiment amongst the people in the Valwood business, forgetting the details of the name, or
Industrial park.
industrial park, are somewhat, seem to be,
Against.
yeah. Based on aesthetics mostly, I mean,
Right.
Any other questions on this request?
So looking at this map, where is their building? I
On
see the
s-
green,
Southern,
is it on the west,
On the north side, so
across
more towards
Valwood on the other
Valwood,
side?
more towards the Valwood side, Valwood Parkway, the north of the property. That area might not be updated.
yeah, I can see
Do
if
you have
we
any
have
of the
a more.
latest
It's like
photos?
the most
I had site
narrow part.
The little
photos.
narrow part is where the building is?
Yes. Yeah, the aerial is not up to
Yeah,
date,
that aerial is just
Okay.
out of date.
but the site photos in the staff report are up to date.
Yeah, you can see it in these.
That's it. Here, this is their building. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, got it. That's what I thought.
All right, thank you again. All right, that takes us to item D3, conduct a public hearing, consider the request for a specific use permit and associated detailed site plan allowing vehicle repair use located at 3607 Garden Brook Drive and take appropriate action.
So as it shows in the staff report, this is an SUP request for a vehicle repair use to be located at 3607 Garden Brook Drive. The site is currently being operated as a vehicle repair use. Swedish Auto is what is currently at this location. The applicant, the owner of Swedish Auto is retiring, kind of selling everything to the applicant. The applicant is requesting that SUP to essentially continue the same or very similar use at this location.
Any questions? Just say, I'm sorry that you missed the walk shop that went right by the site.
I know, right?
But, but it was a good one.
Why are we making them do the irrigation? I'm assuming that's not to come out of the tenant's pocket, right?
So the irrigation, when this building was constructed in 1977, that wasn't part of the CZO at that time. Now that it is a requirement of our CZO, we would identify that as being legal non-conforming, and as part of this SUP, we're looking at this as an opportunity to bring that into compliance with our current CZO.
What did they say about it?
I spoke to the applicant last week, and he seemed to be okay with that recommendation, as well as the screening recommendation. The applicant will be here at tonight's meeting, so, if he has additional information or anything like that, he will probably be able to answer any questions on your end regarding that. But he seemed okay with that recommendation as of late last week.
Anything further? All right, thank you so much. That does take us back to item A2, review and discuss the Planning and Zoning Commission's work program for fiscal year 2022-2023. Busy year.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Shrupa Sen, Deputy Director of Planning. It's that time of the year when we try to update the Commission's work program for the upcoming year. Let's see, I think I have it open. Right. So you might notice that the project list may seem a little less than last year. However, I wanted to kind of mention in the beginning that the list might seem a little smaller, but the projects are actually pretty significant. As all of you in this room know, the projects we are undertaking right now. So first of all, we always try to follow the City Council's strategic initiatives and their critical business outcomes guided by their strategic plan when we look at the Planning and Zoning Commission's work program or the projects that we undertake. So all the CBOs or their critical business outcomes are listed here. Ensure strategic planning alignment to current status of city's vision and mission, improve access to responsible diverse housing, identify and implement a solution for managing drainage and retention, plan for, build, and maintain high-quality public assets, support the evaluation of art and culture in Farmers Branch, strategically identify and acquire property to further the goals of the city, execute sustainability initiatives, and implement the recommendations from I-35 Corridor Vision Study. Last but not the least, improve overall and targeted community engagement. You'll notice that as we go through our project list, most of these CBOs we hit as we talk about the projects, even though I haven't highlighted or identified all of them individually. Kind of the strategy map, which is on your screen here, gives you a pathway on how we can reach those CBOs. So the strategy maps tells us how to accomplish the city's mission, the big picture objectives that are the basis for all the work the city undertakes in a given year, and the city's key focus areas. Also for staff, the way we have mapped this is we have 4 strategic objective categories. So these are grouped into serve our customers, who are the residents, the businesses, anyone who comes to our door asking for any service for the city. Manage the business, provide financial stewardship, and promote learning and growth. So the first project that we will talk about a bit more on the next item on your agenda is, of course, adopt a citywide comprehensive plan guided by CBO1. We are going through phase 2 of that comprehensive planning process. It's an overall 18-month-long planning process that we are hoping to accomplish adoption by early summer at the conclusion of phase 3. Then the second big project on our list is implementation of the recommendations from I-35E Corridor Vision Study. That was the last or the latest long-range plan that was adopted by City Council early February of 2021. So you can see that's directly mentioned in CBO 8. The first step we took was City Council have already adopted or established I-35E corridor boundary-based TIF district. It's called TIF 4. The next project is Rezone Target Area 1, which is the area right west of 35 and Valley View interchange. So there is an area that was identified within the I-35 Corridor Vision Study as a priority area. It's very close to our DART station area or the TOD projects. And the recommendation was we need to provide seamless connections. We need to make sure that it doesn't appear that west of 35 and east of 35 are kind of disconnected and two distinct characters, two distinct identities. Even though the uses and the users are in some cases different, but there still have to be some connectivity, better pedestrian connections, better land use mixes, and better design controls. So with that goal in mind, the second project that is ongoing right now is to rezone that target area 1, and we are proposing to expand the station area form-based code to the west side of 35. We are looking at an expected completion around May, June of 2023. Then will come the other target areas as recommended in the vision study, target area 2, 3, and 4. Some of those rezoning work can be done in-house. Some of those might require a bit more involvement and a bit more staff time. We might ask for consultant help, but we don't know yet. Right now, the two big projects are the comprehensive plan and the rezoning of target area 1. Then our ongoing other two big code amendment project are, of course, the tree preservation ordinance guided by CBO 7 and also our sustainability initiatives. And the second one is adoption of revised standards for landscaping. Because right now, as we looked at briefly at the last study session, our current landscaping requirements are not comparable to the neighboring cities as well as from the minimum industry-wide standards. So we are doing a comprehensive review of our current landscaping standards, and we're trying to process this as quickly as possible through you guys first and then through City Council for adoption. So those are the two big code amendment projects that are being undertaken. Then the last one on the list is update and streamline development review processes. That's an ongoing kind of a to-do list that both Ms. Cook and I have on our list, because we would like to pride ourselves in saying that we want to process our projects, our planning applications, and any request that comes through the planning and ED door in the most painless way, if I can use that term, where they don't feel like they're going through this big drawn-out process where there are several players involved, several permits and applications involved, and the applicants don't always know how long it's going to take, how many departments they're going to touch. So that's on our to-do list as an ongoing process improvement task. And we are making small improvements as we go along the way. For example, Senior Planner Sarah here took a lead on updating our checklist, our submittal checklist. Last year, as you know, some of you know, we went, not even last year, I think year before, we went online on our application processes. So some of those documents needed updating, how to help prospective applicants find the right documents and how to submit on the website. She helped us a lot on updating those documents to make it more user-friendly. Another process improvement task that we undertook over the last 2 years is updating our website, because we do want people to find information easily on our website, guide them to our website. That also helps us because it reduces the number of phone calls. If it's easy to find on our website, then if I were a resident or if I were a business owner, I'd go to the website and find that information rather than picking up the phone. Not that you wouldn't, but usually that's what people would like to do. So that has been an ongoing process of making sure our website is, information on our website is easy to understand, easy to follow, and easy to find. Besides that, the process overall, how to make it less time consuming and less complex is a goal that we are striving to achieve. And you might not see those works in front, but that's happening in the back of the office. So that's what I have in terms of the work plan. Other additional items, we will of course be planning for the commission retreat. This time we're hoping to do it in summer. Maybe that would help us weather-wise, as you said.
What month in summer are we talking?
Spring, yeah.
I know the spring was a fiasco. we are hoping that summer weather, maybe early summer, would be
Okay.
better. So that's in the works. We will, after we talk about the calendar dates, then we will start looking into possible retreat dates as well with you all. Then the quarterly update on development projects, that's an ongoing item. We'll be bringing those back to you. And then monthly update on council action project, that's an update to you all through study session where we report on how Commission acted on a certain, on development cases and how City Council acted on those same cases. So with that, is there anything else that Commission would like to have added to this list? If you think we missed something or something can be done better, please let us know and we'll be happy to make those adjustments. And then in an upcoming City Council meeting, Chair Rayleigh will present the work plan to City Council as well. That's all I have.
So in the streamlining the processes, do you have a metric or a measurement that you have that you can use to say whether you're moving the ball or not? Like, is there
Yes.
one, like, I know, like in the public safety, it's response time. I mean, it's really easy to get your mind around. Do you have anything similar to that?
Yeah, so with planning, that's a very good question. Sometimes it's tricky to put those matrices on us because it's not always a very easy cut and dry black and white number of days. So for example, when I started working here, we used to have a matrix that, okay, there is a number of days within which staff should issue the first round of comments. And if you hit that deadline, that means you are meeting that matrix. And then for each subsequent review, there was a matrix that called for, okay, how many reviews every project on an average is requiring, and if it's 3 or more reviews or 3 or less. However, it tells you one side of the story because sometimes it's not always, is it taking longer number of reviews because of staff? Or is it taking longer number of reviews because the comments are not being addressed in a timely fashion by the applicant? So that's why it gets tricky. However, we do still maintain some of those matrices, which is once we went online, we reduced that initial number of review days to 2 weeks. That staff will provide comments to applicants within 2 weeks after submittal, like once they have paid the fees. And then all the subsequent submittals, because we don't hold their feet to the fire to say, okay, once we have sent comments out, you have to have it back to us in 5 days or else it's rejected. So we give them enough time to work on the plans. But as soon as they submit revised plans, we again put staff on like a week timeline that, okay, within the week, you have to run it through DRC and send the comments out or revise comments out. So those kind of matrices do exist. However, what I was also mentioning or indicating to in terms of streamlining processes is, as an applicant, that individual does not always know how many departments get to touch a particular project. And that's when it becomes tricky, because planning only sees planning's side of things. Like, we are seeing the site plan or we are seeing the zoning application, that's it. Then it has to go to Public Works for their construction plans. Then it has to go to building permit for their building plan review. And sometimes those days, once you start to add up, starting from the day applicant submitted their plan to planning, from that day to when they actually get the permit issued is a long time. And many cities struggle with that, and I think that's what I'm trying to talk about when I'm saying development process, because it's an overall process. And that's on our next kind of to-do list, like to come up with a development process flow chart where it makes it easier for people to understand, okay, how your property is unique and how your use is unique. If you follow a certain path, if your use is allowed, you go straight to this process. You don't come to us. If your use is not allowed by right, then maybe you come to us and there is a different path. So if that makes sense, that's what we are trying to tweak around. Because every city is also different. Because some applicants would have worked in other municipalities and their process is different, versus Farmers Branch process is a bit different.
So I do have a question, not on this, well, it is on this. So I was out of town and didn't get to go on any of the walking tours. How did that go and how was that responded to within the city?
Actually, that's, I think,
I don't
the
know.
one item down. I did put an item on the comprehensive plan engagement update. I'd love to talk about it then, if
Yes.
that's okay.
Anything else on
other
the work
questions?
program?
Anything you want to add?
Lots of work ahead.
Thank you.
Next up, item A3, discussion regarding 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting dates. Thank you for providing that calendar. Any questions on the calendar and dates? Right, seeing none, we will now move to item A4, update regarding comprehensive plan public engagement efforts. That will address.
Before we move on to that item, Madam Chair, if I may just add one quick note on the calendar.
Sure.
And you might have already noticed this. We have put the proposed city council dates also on that calendar. However, city council is going to look at and review their calendar tomorrow night at city council meeting. So in case there are any changes proposed on the council meeting dates, we might have to make some adjustments. So please be cognizant of that. And the changes, we have put in the cover memo that where the typical second and fourth Monday date has switched, it's either because of council meeting dates shifting or because of the Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD holiday during March. So things of that nature, which we usually make those adjustments. But if you have any questions, concerns on any of these meeting dates, if you feel some of the dates are not working for majority of you, please let us know. That way we can make those adjustments accordingly.
Is it more ideal to have it alternate with the city council meeting rather than the same week?
Yes, because the way we build our application calendar is, once the application is considered, like for example, the applications that are being considered tonight at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, they're going to be considered not on the immediately next council meeting, but the one after. But if we try to put P&Z and council meetings immediately next to each other, then there is always the potential of cases waiting for a whole month before they can go to a council meeting, because the agenda for tomorrow's meeting has already been finalized the week before. So the cases for tonight, for example, would not even be ready to be considered for tomorrow's council meeting. Only you will notice typically the November and December are the 2 months of the year that we always have that back-to-back situation. And that's when we always notice that the case that goes to November has to go to December council and vice versa. So we typically tend to avoid back-to-back P and Z council meetings.
Okay.
All right, so I will bring up the.
All right, so that, yep, we will now hear about our public engagement efforts. And thank you, I did attend, and I
Yes.
appreciate staff's efforts as well as our consultants in those.
Thank you so much. Let me pull up. Oh, before I go there, I wanted to show you, I know during the engagement activities, we try to keep this homepage banner related to comprehensive plan. First of all, let me take a step back. So I wanted to talk about not only the engagement activities that happened last week, but also receive your feedback, because I'm happy to say that quite a few of you, Chair Rayleigh, Commissioner Neal, Commissioner McGinnis, you guys were able to attend most of the events or some of the events. So after we talk about what we did last week, I'd be really excited to hear your feedback as well. So from a website standpoint, we try to, as I was saying, we try to put for at least the month of engagement activities starting before as well as continuing few more weeks after, where people can easily find out more information. There has been some changes already been made on this because those events are past, so we took out those information from our web pages. But previously, it was talking about the workshop on the homepage, and then you could click on this link and go to the landing page for comprehensive plan. So right now, you can see they have we have put up the community vision and analysis survey. So the goal of this particular engagement activity has been, we have heard in phase one what residents and businesses had to say about what they want to see for Farmers Branch, and based on those discussions, the consultants had drafted a draft vision and goal statement, and we wanted to run that by the residents and businesses and see what their take was, if they liked, if they did not like, and what their feedback was. Now that the in-person activities are complete, we have started the online survey where you can experience the same kind of activities or same kind of questions and give your input. So if you click on this link, and you can also just click on here if you don't want to click on that box, is the same survey. So all that information analysis, it's presented in a very bite-sized format and easy to follow. So in the introduction, it's again talking about the survey because we don't want people to miss the survey. If someone doesn't want to go through all that reading and just want to take the survey, they can do that from there. But it has all these tabs, so you can also click on the tabs to directly go to those sections. Otherwise, you can just scroll through. This is called an ESRI story map format, online story map format, where you can put the text and the maps and graphics in a very easy to follow, almost like a storytelling format. So it talks about the vision. In 20 years, Farmers Branch will be a welcoming, diverse, and evolving city that has everything our residents need. Then it has this kind of a umbrella statement and then kind of builds on that. What are the guiding values? The city in a park, our city is connected. Anyone can find a home in Farmers Branch, there are housing options. Redevelopment is designed with high quality. Diversity is our strength. The city provides more shopping and dining. Farmers Branch continues to be a great place to do business. So one thing I felt needed a bit of a clarification during our internal and external discussion is that these are also aspirational statements, as Chair Rayleigh mentioned last time also. It's not necessary that we are already there in every aspect. Some of them we are doing a pretty good job. Like I am happy to say that yes, we are a city in a park. We have really good quality parks and trail systems. But there are some items on this list where we can do better. And that's what we are aspiring to be in 20 years. And that's what we heard people tell us, that this is what they see as their future home, or this is how they want to grow and develop. Then as you go into each topic, this is kind of existing where we have our main single-family homes or some of our multifamily apartment complexes. And you can zoom in and out of this map to see the whole city, or you can zoom in, see a specific area, move this map around. And it talks about what we found through the analysis, through the data. talks about senior housing, talks a little bit about affordable housing, what we mean by housing cost burden. There are some numbers listed here. So you can get more informed about the analysis part of the study that they have been doing over the past few months. Then there are some market analysis in terms of what kind of multifamily development since 2010 has happened within the city. They have the demand indicators. Then have some business and employment data. And also, not only do they provide you the source of where they are culling the data from, in some cases it's like sources like CoStar or A3, in some cases it's the city, some cases talking to us, city staff, like for example, they talk to us, they talk to Ms. Cook, they talk to Public Works Director, they talk to all the technical experts in their respective fields, and that's how they synthesize this information. So as you scroll through all this information, it also eventually goes to the land use situation. Okay, so this is where we did some of the catalytic opportunity sites. So that's the Dart Station area. There's Four Corners where we did one of our workshops. Then the Belline Road between Webb Chapel and Marsh. Dallas College Brookhaven campus. This is the industrial area on the east side. And then talking about land use. These are our general land use situation right now. And the step analysis is kind of the meat during this phase, that how they're building on the data and the discussions, conversations they had so far, they're coming up with their recommendations slowly. Step analysis, they talked about strengthen, transform, enhance, and preserve. So there are areas that they have identified, the blue shaded areas, they're saying these are going to be strengthened. There are pink areas on the map, they're talking about transform. Then the rest of this kind of beige color areas, they're saying enhance, which basically retain most of the character because these are residential areas, don't make any big changes, but preserve those areas and enhance those areas. Then, of course, we have the open spaces. Those are definitely preserved. And then our employment core or our industrial cores, they're also recommending for preserving those areas. So there are some very good information on this portal that I would encourage all of you to take a look at, like mobility discussion. It talks about basically traffic counts on each of our major roadways, the carrying capacity of each corridor, what kind of active transportation options we have, like what our trail master plan talks about, where are the gaps. Then they talked about transit. Of course, we have Dart Light Rail and their bus service, what kind of ridership we are looking at, and then their new GoLink service that many people might not be aware of, that Dart has started providing. And there is safety data that we received from our police and fire, and also there are national crash data downloads that you can access this data from.
Time frame, is that a year?
Which one?
That crash?
Let me see. When consider, it's probably for the annual. Yeah, it's an annual number.
Okay, so once a year they update that, okay.
I mean, our police and fire maintain most of this fatality or crash data on a regular basis. But when they're displaying it on the map, they're probably showing you either an average daily or a total number of incidents in a given time period. So this is the survey. And that's where they're going to ask about the same kind of feedback we asked in the events. Now, going back to what Commissioner Bartle was asking, over the past week, what we did was we had 4 workshops, which are basically walking tours of 4 different neighborhoods in the city. We did one on the city's east side, we did one on the Four Corners area, we did one in the Belline corridor area, and we did one at the Valued residential neighborhood. I personally am happy to say that we had quite a few residents and employees join us. I think Four Corners was the most attended. About 20 plus people attended that workshop. And also, I'm very happy to say that even from a personal observation, I probably would not have walked in all the areas, even though I work here. And it was very educational and informative for me because unless you start walking those areas, you don't notice those slight little things like, okay, was the sidewalk connected? Was there enough lighting? Was the signal timing enough for us to cross the intersections? Those are the things that was really, really educational and informative to us, staff, at the staff level, and we have been bringing those up since those events. Then we also did 2 employer pop-ups. Thank you for Brian to go to those pop-ups where one was at Essilor, one was at International Plaza, where we attempted to reach the employees who may not live here, but they work here, to find out what they feel about this comprehensive plan and what they think about the vision and the goals and the other study that we are doing, or the elements of the study.
Was there a staff member on every single one? Yeah.
Yes, so for example, me, Ms. Cook, Marcos, Chris, Sarah, I think all of us attended. I think Marcos and Brian attended the Belline one. Rest of us attended all the other 3, which is the Four Corners, East Side, and the Valwood. I know Brian was busy with the employer pop-up for both the other 2 workshops, so he couldn't go
Were they
to
at
the Four
different times so
Corners.
that people could attend different ones? Yeah,
Yep.
good. So who here went? Did anybody here?
So Chair Rayleigh went to the Belline one, Commissioner McGinnis went to East Side as well as Four Corners, Commissioner Neal went to the Valwood. Remind me, was there? Four Corners.
And then the rec center.
The workshop. And then, of course, we had the open house workshop in the evening on Thursday at the rec center. So that's where anyone could come.
I was out of town, I was sorry to miss it.
So it was a really, really good activity, and I would love to hear your feedback, if you don't mind sharing those with us.
How much did you get from the residents' feedback? Did they pick up the same things you did?
Yes, because there were quite a few attendees. For example, the Four Corners, where I'll pick on that one. Quite a few attendees, younger populations also, and they talked about that they want to walk or bike, and it does not feel always safe to walk or bike. And it was during day, so we were talking about most of lack of connectivity or lack of safe crossing areas. The less signal timing, where even when we press the pedestrian crossing button, it doesn't give us enough time to make the crossing. And if someone had accessibility needs, it would be even more difficult for them. The residents from the Valued neighborhood area joined us in that walk. They had observations on how safe the neighborhood felt for them because they felt their neighbors they knew each other, so they kind of watched out for each other. So that was very good observation. I'm trying to think. The east side, yes, we definitely talked to. It was during business hours, and of course, east side is the interesting one where you have the juxtaposition of industrial building as well as the multifamily apartments. And some of the comments were that, yes, it does not feel safe if you are trying to walk your dog, or even if it's, it's winter months, so it's going to start getting dark soon, and lack of lighting, lack of connectivity, just lack of presence of people. makes it difficult for the new residents in that area.
Are you gonna
Yes, sir.
go over this again downstairs, or is this just for our purposes here too?
I was planning to do it in the
Okay, I
study
just wasn't sure.
session.
Just study session only?
Yes.
Okay.
Question, the comments that the people made, it's all anonymous, so the comments that they wrote and submitted, would you benefit from being able to get back to the people who made the comments and get more information, or is anonymous better?
From an analytical planner, I would say having anonymous survey is more beneficial because as soon as you start requesting people for their information, even though the intention is good because you probably want to get back to them and help them find a solution or answer or any other means that you have in your mind, it always discourages someone from filling up a survey. That's just an analytic observation that we have over the years. So my 2 cents would be, it's better to have an anonymous survey. Commissioner Neal, if you wanted
Yeah,
to
I-
say a few words
Yeah,
about
I
your.
attended several of the events. I didn't get to all of them. There's a couple of themes there that I took away from generally all of the ones I attended, and most of the people, and I would agree, tend to agree that one of the visions is to have a small town feel, and I don't think we felt that anywhere that we walked. So there was a lot of comments regarding, this is not anything like a small town. Getting, crossing the road is dangerous, and sometimes walking your dog is difficult and challenging, and bicycle paths are not wide enough. There's just multiple things that tend to lend itself to the small town feel thing. And to be honest with you, walking behind Four Corners, behind the Ace Hardware was a real eye-opener. And I don't really know what other word I can use other than to say urban blight. It's just the property standards there are not maintained or enforced. It's just really pretty bad. So I'm hopeful that those new townhomes that are going in there will spur something there to bring that up to a little bit better property
So,
standards.
I know the city did put money into overdoing the front of that. Is that whole property is owned by the same man, is it not? Yeah. So did we not do anything to upgrade the facades of the back portions of those when we did that?
So you're talking about the facade grant?
Yeah,
He
is that just
applied
the
about
front?
8 years ago for a facade grant for the properties fronting Josie, which is
Fronting,
collectively
ah.
2 long linear retail strips. He put about $1 million into that. We gave a small piece of a grant. He did 95% of it. And so I don't know why he didn't apply for the backside. I can make some assumptions, but it's redeveloping. It's going to be redeveloped one day, so.
All that needs to go.
Amen. Except for Marshalls.
Marshall's relocated.
I think they've resold, haven't they?
Big Lots needs to go too. That corner's, all that needs to go. Actually, all 4 corners need to go, except for.
Well, I think I had a revelation that, to make a small town feel there, to make the Four Corners walkable, the storefronts need to be on the sidewalk and not behind acres and acres of parking lot. That would make not only walking down the street more pleasurable, but you can walk from one of those corners to another of the corners without feeling like you want to get in your car and drive the whole way because there's so much parking lot to cover.
Fewer parking spots, right? If you live in the neighborhood, you're not gonna wanna just get in your car and drive a minute. You'd rather just, okay, I'll walk 10 minutes to
Sure.
get there. So less parking would encourage people that live in that area to walk to the corner.
And the
It's just that
setbacks.
There's so much, and setbacks.
Yeah.
It's just too much parking.
But what do you do? Again, the issue is you have all these individual business owners. There's, what can you really do? Especially the side where McDonald's is and all those. Those are all owned by all
I
these.
think that came
different
up
people.
multiple times throughout the
So,
group
like,
about
what can you
having so
really
many owners
do?
of the property, 20 or 30 some owners. It's kind of challenging to bring that all together.
How do you
So many
assemble
people,
it?
yeah, how
Yeah.
to get them all together, but that's a real challenge.
You can invest in the public realm if anyone wants to know my opinion, and you can put more money in the public realm, things we own. So we don't own David Clausen's 14 acres, but we own streets, we own parks, we own a lot of things that could be a lot better. So the private sector would say, hey, what are they doing? I want to be there and buy one of those parcels and redevelop it. other than me begging people to come buy a dark Chase Bank building for 10 years, which is what I did.
And I will follow up on that and say, on our, last year when we did do the 2 trips, and we saw what was happening both in Richardson and in Fort Worth, that's exactly what we saw there when they, to your point about the small town feel, when they invested in the streetscape to create a safe pedestrian environment, that also spurred a lot of the
Businesses
private
also, yeah.
investment.
Right.
And there were some TIFs and other structures that help facilitate that. And I think that we're well on our way with things like the I-35 corridor vision study of promoting those sorts of tools and techniques to enhance those as we, I think that we'll see that as we, in the summer, start to implement some of those ideas. And then once, I know it's a 5-year plan for the 35 construction that's happening, but once that's complete and we have those pedestrian corridors and that connectivity, I think we'll start to see there, and that will seep over, right? And it'll be, one piece at a time, like Johnny Cash built his car.
It's a 20-year plan.
Well, it is a 20-year plan, and I would follow up on these comments, which I think are really spot on to what I heard too. And at the same time, I also heard people on those walks say, well, who walks here anyway? To which I actually answered, that's my bus stop. So I do. And so I think there is still a perception amongst a lot of our residents that they don't quite know who these improvements are for because maybe they don't see themselves walking there. But I would like to encourage them that I walk there. And when I moved to this region, I didn't even own a car. It was 6 months before I got a car after moving here, because in my last residence, which is Atlanta, another sprawling, large metropolitan area, I didn't have to own a car. I could ride my bike. And I couldn't do that here, not for very long, safely. And I miss it. Like, I really miss that. And I would like to have the wind in my hair. And
Helmet.
I have a helmet, but the wind still catches the hair. And,
Well,
and
there were several bikers there
Yeah.
that said the same thing. They would really like to bike around.
So I believe you're absolutely right. That came up during the Four Corners walk too, because the idea, and that was beneficial for us to hear, that the idea that, well, no one is really walking, so why even worry about these? But there were several attendees who actually raised their hands and said that, no, we walk and bike, so we'd love to see those improvements. So that was very helpful.
And in that Four Corners, as I recall, there were several residents, long-term residents that have been here for 15, 20, 30 years, who brought to our attention once again that there was a study to do this 15 years ago. And they're frustrated because they participated in this 15 years ago and have seen little to nothing done over the 15 years. So they're like, why should we even be attending this? But we're glad they did. And I'm hoping the Santec group, as well as us, will look at 15 years ago and maybe do something so that the residents don't feel like nothing was done.
So let me ask another question. I know that the controversial part of the road diet just set the city on fire, and I still hear it today, and I don't know where that stands, but I'm looking around here. But if, in the things that we saw presentations on in Arlington, did you go there? When we went
Worth one?
with the planning,
Fort Worth
the
planning.
Fort Worth planning and stuff that we did over there, that made an unbelievable amount of change in the communities that happened. Now, I hear people say, why would we reduce Midway? Why would we reduce Marsh Lane? But I'm thinking, why don't we reduce Valley View myself? I think those things, just that one thing, would truly bring a neighborhood feel, widen the sidewalks, plant down the middle, do all of those things. And it did a world of difference. Who was there and saw that?
yeah.
There.
I was there, but I have to say, I didn't see one cyclist. in Fort Worth when we were there. I didn't see any.
No, I'm
I saw
talking
some
about the
pictures.
presentation where they did and did the
Streets
presentations
presentation.
of the street road diets.
I thought you were talking about the Fort Worth trip.
It was in
Well,
Fort
it
Worth,
was in
but it
Fort
was
Worth.
the
There-
APA conference.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At the
So the
APA conference
the
presentation.
public health official who did
Yes.
the presentation?
Yes. And
talking
they have
about the
done
benefits
that
of
in many
walking and
places, and they screamed and yelled and hollered, and we don't want it, and it won't work. But every place they've done it, it has worked. And it has given that small neighborhood feel, and the traffic moved just as well through all of the areas. You weren't there, G. So, did you attend it, by any- or have you seen it?
I know what you're speaking of, and I think there's some places where it makes absolute sense. And, there's a cost barrier to do, obviously, the whole city, and it's not needed. But if you do
Correct.
it in certain active zones.
Yes.
It still would be pending funding, because it's very expensive. Geo may know you're in construction, but I know it's something per mile, and,
Sure.
it's mind-blowing. So, in a perfect world, if I had all the money, we do a lot of things.
Well-
But to activate the four corners, you can make the public realm a little bit better.
Correct.
Not the whole city, right?
Maintaining
No, I think you're right.
infrastructure is expensive too, right? Like, so you talk about maintaining 6 lanes of road versus 4 lanes of road there's a cost, and especially as the infrastructure deteriorates and you have to rebuild. I know we just redid Valley View, so it's sort of a moot point there because we spent the money, we're not doing it again. But the other streets that the infrastructure needs are coming up.
Yeah.
It costs less to build
Right.
less road, right? Like,
Right, and so I would say, another thing too, I think where you go and you invest in certain areas of the public realm that gets investors interested. Also, it's important to know, people that own all these different properties that we're talking about have property rights, and they can't be forced to do anything,
Right.
And so that's an important piece of the puzzle. However, you want them to want to do something because you're doing something great,
Yes.
And so it first takes a catalyst. It doesn't take the city investing all of our dollars somewhere and buying everything. It takes us just being a catalyst so that it's not a conflict with the private sector.
So,
So that's complementary.
my question, Sam, and how this interacts with this plan and the consultants, like, will they potentially come back and say, we think you should do a complete street on Valley View from I-35? So that's not gonna be, that whole thing with the complete streets is not really being
I think
pursued by
I'm looking
anybody
at
this point.
Commissioner Zavala. He's gonna look at me like, why are you looking at me? That was a presentation that was requested, I believe, Commissioner Zavala, if I'm saying it right, to talk about because there was some confusion about what Complete Street is. It wasn't ever a project. It was never, like, when you were saying where
Correct.
that stand, my
Correct.
answer to you would be, it never had any legs. Because it was never really a project. It was an idea
Right.
that we
That
wanted to
moved across the
discuss.
city at an underground level.
Yeah, it
Just
was kind of a,
something.
way it was spread was a very confusing way. So we just wanted to talk about what that idea meant. Because beyond Farmers Branch, we have all the cities which have complete streets projects, as we looked at in our tours, in our neighboring towns and other places in the metro area where they're doing those. It's not one solution for every roadway, as Ms. Cook is mentioning. And it's also not the idea of we have to reduce the capacity of the roadway. That's not what that premise is. The premise is to make sure the roadways or the right-of-ways, which are basically public assets owned by everyone in the city, are being used by everyone in the city and not just the person who is driving the car. That's the concept. So the concept is to make it same for everyone, where if I want to walk, I can walk just like someone next to me can drive a car. And I can be safe on my sidewalk while I'm walking. That does not mean I'm stopping the person driving from driving. He still gets the same facility, whereas not taking away from the person who wants to walk on that right-of-way. So that was the idea, and what this comprehensive plan's goal is to look at all the elements of the cities, not just the roadways, is the land use, is the economic calculations, the market analysis, mobility, how everything is connected. So that's the discussion they're having, that's the analysis piece that we had over there. Once they go through the analysis, That's when they will come up with the recommendation. And the recommendation is built on two sides. It's not just based on the analysis. And if the analysis comes back and says all the roadways have to be redesigned, that doesn't mean that's the recommendation that's going to be put forth. Because the other side of the recommendation is built through people's input, what the residents want. If the residents are dead set on saying that, no, that's not what we want, that's not what we told you, then that's not the recommendation that's going to be the plan's recommendation. And I kind of repeat myself on saying this. I told this to the consultants, I say this to any public forum that I talk about a comprehensive plan is, for a planner, a comprehensive plan is only successful when it talks about the people, when what we are saying in the plan is something that the residents and the businesses can say, okay, this is what we told them. This is what we said we wanted. It's not something that the consultants are gonna come and tell us. It's
Right.
what they heard
Right.
and what they also understood from their analysis. That's how they're gonna make the sausage and deliver the hot dog. I
Isn't
guess.
it the case sometimes you don't know what you need? Like, I mean, the complete street idea, citizens don't know.
They
what
don't
complete-
understand it.
They don't even know what it is, or
No.
or what the benefits are. or,
Right.
You know, and even when that came up and we had that one meeting where all the people showed up, it seemed like we were talking about, well, wait a minute, we're just hiring consultants now. And it was like it was implied that we
We're
were
gonna do
hiring
it, right.
consultants to look at that whole thing. And now I'm hearing almost that's it, like that. Like
That was never
No,
connected to
no.
the comprehensive.
well, maybe
plan.
not, but I remember even Chairman Moore say, look, well, we're in the process of hiring consultants about this. This is a year and a half out, and don't worry yet, because
It's
we're
coming.
just getting started. And I'm hearing a little bit
It's
now,
wrong,
like it's not
yeah.
even really in anything.
So to clarify, the mobility component or the streets, looking at the mobility part of it, that's what, remember besides housing, market, economic analysis, there was a mobility section.
Right.
So that is still part of the comprehensive plan. But it's not necessarily that's the main idea,
Yeah, we
or,
don't know what it is, but they are at least
Right.
looking at that. They're at least
Right.
considering complete streets as a potential.
solution, but not for the whole city. I
No,
mean,
no,
that's what I'm
no, I
saying, we don't
understand that.
know.
But it's still something they're considering.
They are looking at the mobility options.
Okay.
Because now it seems like besides road diet, even complete streets is a taboo word.
Right.
I don't even know whether I can use
Right.
that anymore.
That word.
That word.
That word.
We were doing the plan this year, it was in the budget, and the council got to decide, do you want housing, do you want mobility, do you want all these different things? And so when we got their feedback on what that was, and we took it to consultant, got the quote, came back. And so that's how it kind of went back and forth. We got it to where, okay, we can afford this amount for these like 4 or 5 topics.
Right.
And then it, I think that's where the confusion was.
A huge amount of confusion. It still is. I still hear it.
And I think ultimately what it will come down to is even if you were at any of the sessions where folks were with their hands looking at maps and drawing and writing and using little pipe cleaners and drawing things and like really engaged in that activity, while someone may not have the language to say the words complete streets, when someone says, I want to be safe walking from here to here, or I would really like to go from my house here to this store over here in an easier way than going all the way around the cul-de-sac world, then they are communicating that. And
They
so
understand that.
a lot of the job of our consultants and planners is to interpret the values and intent. When someone says, I want that small town feel, I want to be able to do the shopping, they won't say, I want a smaller setback. But we know that those are the built environments that create the desired values and feel that the people are talking about. So you may be right that the people may not have the language of complete streets, but it is highly likely that they will communicate the underlying tenets that would inform that decision from the consultants. And from what I saw, I think they're perfectly capable of doing that translation. And that's really how the sausage is made, is in the translation. And of the data, right? Because that's a lot of, we saw some pretty images that they did with ArcGIS and different things, but that's a data translation too, to help us visualize and see it. And they're looking at a lot of numbers behind the scenes that we're not seeing, but they've already interpreted for us in a way to help us, because maybe we don't speak, data, right? But
Good point.
I'm very, based off the feedback and what I've heard from being at these workshops and sessions and the different things, I have heard many citizens also say, you know, I would like to feel safer, in whether that's lighting or just having a sidewalk, because in many places in our city, we don't even have a sidewalk. And so that's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was like, these things were so eye-opening.
Well, there were some fundamental concepts about just general speeding throughout the city and inability to walk across a bridge. One grandfather there refused to take his children across that bridge because of the danger. So
Yeah, and
there may be options need to be addressed now before.
yeah, and to your point
This
about
20-year plan, so.
yeah, about speeding, like those are things, again, we know the built environment, those kind of streetscapes, even changing the materials or how the intersection looks with the, you know, different materials can help with those sort of things.
Yeah.
So I'm very hopeful that I think we will arrive at some actionable solutions. Like, I really appreciate the emphasis on the actionability of the items that we're coming up with within the plan. Any other updates on our comprehensive plan? I think the turnout also has been very good, so I will say that aspect as well.
Was there an expectation as to how many would come?
The expectation was always to have more people than the last one. The more the merrier, so I.
Was there more than the last one?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't count, but there were definitely good attendance in the open house. And if the last thing I want to leave you guys with is, if you were not able to attend the workshop for any reason, it was a particular time during the day, it was a given day of the week, please feel free to take the survey. Please encourage your friends and neighbors to take the survey. Because last time we got like 200 plus survey responses, and that was really, really good. For us, for like study like this, having 200 plus survey responses on top of 100 plus in-person attendance, that was very, very encouraging. So I would really like to encourage all of you, if you could not attend the events, please take the survey. Please let your friends and family know about the survey. It's gonna stay open till the beginning of next year. I think we're keeping it for the first week after the holidays. That way, if people would have holiday plans, that way they can come back and still have the survey available.
All right. So item A5, discuss agenda items for future planning and zoning commission consideration. Any, yes?
I talked with Sarah a little bit and emailed her, and I think Sharupa, you got some information on the Texas Trees Foundation. After our discussion about trees last month, I've tried to get a little bit smarter about it. And I think it might be nice to have somebody from Texas Trees Foundation come and talk to us about how they can help us do tree surveys and just a general improvement in their urban forest work. So I haven't talked to Sharupa or Sarah much about it, but they're happy to come give a presentation about what they do and how they can work with us.
I do know Janet over there. Thank you for that.
Thank you. We have passed the information to Kira McCardle, who is the project planner on the tree preservation ordinance.
Right.
So I don't know whether you have also passed that information, I believe.
I sent her other information, but I will indicate to her my connection there in case that's helpful.
And that's who the city's working with, isn't it? When they buy the trees for the giveaway.
I believe so.
don't know.
I'll have to check.
I think maybe so.
Maybe so.
We did,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether they went to Texas Tree Foundation.
the ones that we gave away?
Sometimes Encore is a supplier as well.
It's probably from a local tree farm.
No, it wasn't Encore. It was
Okay.
it was a supplier.
Okay.
Maybe a tree farm, that would be my guess.
We had to look for the trees that were available at the time, and then we will try to do 3 other trees. We're trying to do it every year in a giveaway. We may change the kind of tree each year, but those were trees that were really good for this area. So it would be our department that has worked with them, so
Okay.
sustainability, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all. We will head downstairs and we'll try to be fairly prompt on that. Since Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the City of Farmers Branch. It is Monday, December 12th, 2022, and it is presently 7:04. We will begin with citizen comments. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not posted on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the Director of Planning for further study or action, and briefly state existing city policy or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. We have no citizen comments submitted for today. That'll take us to our regular agenda items. Item C1, consider approval of the November 14th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners? I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Bertle. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none,
I'll second.
we have a second. All right. And seeing no discussion, we'll move to vote. All those in favor? All right. Actually, I think we had one person not voting because you, okay. Alternate, thank you. Thought we had two, I got it. Okay, thank you. That will take us then to item C2. Consider the request for a detailed site plan for a mixed-use development on a 3.62-acre tract located at 12099 Luna Road and take appropriate action.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The subject property is within Plan Development 88. Then this falls between Mercer Parkway and the LBJ Freeway, as you can see on the screen. The request is to construct 150 apartment units with retail space. To provide a bit of history on this particular location, in 2015, the council approved an amendment with a conceptual site plan allowing for multifamily, retail, and hotel site. The property was later platted into 2 separate lots. This divided the southern hotel site from the northern mixed-use location. The applicant is seeking to develop the mixed-use site, the northern site, which is also considered lot number 1. The approved conceptual site plan included a slip road, parallel parking, wrapped garage, enhanced landscaping, street trees, as well as retail lease space. This slide here shows the conceptual site plan that was provided by the applicant. The applicant has essentially matched the approved conceptual site plan that City Council approved back in 2015. As you can see, there are 2 main drives coming off of Luna Road for site access. The applicant has also included a driveway to the south for future connectivity purposes. The slip road off of Luna Drive is for one-way traffic onto the site, again providing access to the retail shops and the parallel parking spaces. Because this slip road encroaches into the city's right-of-way, Attachment 9 within your packet is a draft easement agreement that will need to be executed between the city and the property owner. And it just essentially outlines who's responsible for construction and maintenance. In this case, obviously, the property owner will be. The 6-level garage is centrally located with 368 parking spaces. There's also 50 outdoor parking spaces or parking stalls that surround the building. Amenities will include courtyards, club rooms, a fitness center, and they will also have a rooftop enclosed club room with a swimming pool. Sidewalks do span the perimeter of this building. Here are the east-west elevations. The structure will be 5 stories tall, wrapping the center garage. Retail space does span the east elevation along the ground level, and this is the side that is facing Luna Road. Along the west elevation, the ground floor apartments will contain raised patio entrances and have direct access to sidewalks as well. The applicant is also proposing a mural on the west side elevation. This is just a sample, which you see on the screen right now. Once they do determine a final design, a formal application will still need to be submitted to our Community Services Department for further review and approval. The building obviously has a very contemporary design. The applicant has used a mixture of different color bricks, stucco, and nichia panel materials. 26% of the property will contain landscape surface. 34 new trees will be planted throughout the site. There is currently a 6-foot-tall masonry wall on the west side. This was previously installed with the Ansbury development. The applicant does plan to install several shrubs along this masonry wall, as well as along the northern perimeter line to create a natural vegetative screen. Now, although the west side plan does designate this area as an employment district, the area has largely developed as a residential community between LBJ and Valley View. Given the surrounded land uses and this property's background, again, knowing that the uses that they're proposing are permitted by right, we do believe this is compatible with the plan. Staff does recommend approval of the detailed site plan. The applicant is here to answer questions, and I'll continue to stand to answer any questions you may have for staff.
All right, Commissioners, any questions for staff firstly? All right. Do we have the applicant, if you'd like to step forward? Please go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Ross Stately with Roars Companies, located at 2 Carlson Parkway in Minnetonka, Minnesota.
All right, questions for the applicant?
Sure. Ross, thank you for joining us today. I think the building it's beautiful. It's really stunning. I definitely admire the work your architecture team and design team did. I had a question that I asked during our study session, and I was hoping you can maybe provide a little bit more insight or maybe some even data points if you have that available to the decision to use retail on the ground floor versus just adding more units.
Sure. Yeah. So for us, it was a decision that we made based off of the traffic that we see there and the visibility there along Luna. We just thought it was a good use for the space. We've been successful in having first floor retail in the past. We think it brings a vibrancy to our building and it helps really kind of rent the rest of the the rest of the multifamily space above it. We just see it as kind of an extension of the already large number of amenities that we're adding to our tenants, or providing to our tenants, I should say.
So I know you're coming with a project, right, that you're planning for it to be successful, but what I've seen lately, and I see it a lot around multifamily buildings that decide to go down the path of having retail at the ground floor, where you don't necessarily get the desired retail businesses you're looking for, or maybe you don't get
Sure.
any, right? And you get just some vacant properties because you don't really have what I would call like a lot of density in the area. You've got the new 1,400 homes that were just recently built within the complex. You do have about 4 other units that are nearby, but you also have this new retail that just got built on the other side of 635. It's called the Boardwalk, is that what it's called? And I only know of like maybe 2 businesses that are going to be occupying space there. So I definitely have a concern that you're going to have this beautiful building and you may
Sure.
not you get the leases that you want down here on the ground floor. So did you guys do a market study or anything, any kind of information that maybe helps support the fact that you are going to have the demand?
We have, yes, and actually we have Nadia here with us from Compass. Nadia is going to be our retail broker on this project.
I'd love
so
to
we've
hear
actually-
any input she may
Nadia,
be able to
you have-
bring to.
Okay.
And if you would, again, just please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Nadia Faki. I work for Compass Real Estate. So we've represented a couple different developments, one in Frisco and one in Carrollton. They are very similar projects. We have noticed there is some desirability for residents to have the convenience, walkability, and more of a lifestyle with these type of, residences that you can just walk downstairs, have some coffee, be able to go to maybe a boutique gym. We have previous tenants such as dental offices. We had a real estate company recently sign up and stuff like that. So they're not, I don't think that there is a huge, in Farmers Branch specifically, I don't see a lot of those boutique kind of special, family-owned, smaller businesses in these environments. So I think it would be a great opportunity to have these residents be able to access these types of spaces. And we're not looking at several spaces. I think we kind of talked about 6, anywhere from 6 to 7 is the calculations that we are thinking about. So we can get into detail with the market studies, but it's something that we can definitely explore if that is a concern for you all.
I'm sorry, if I could, just one of the other things that I'll mention there is just on the rental side. Part of the reason that we've gotten comfort with the retail side is that we are writing what we believe are below market rents for performing below market rents for those spaces, right? So we aren't going out there and trying to chase top of the market rents and going to be holding out for top of the market rents, which is going to kind of artificially create some vacancy in these spaces. We want to see these spaces filled, and we've underwritten them to a point where, we think that the rent is going to be attractive enough that it will fill the building.
You're speaking about the retail side component.
Correct.
What are you using right now for your units in terms of your rent per square foot? What are you seeing on the actual residential?
On the retail or on the residential?
Residential.
Residential, we are right around an average of just a little over $2 a square foot.
Okay. And what were you doing on your retail?
$25 a square foot.
I still have concerns, but
Sure.
your project, right? I mean, obviously, you guys did your own underwriting. You've done your due diligence on your part. So it's just a concern I wanted to voice.
Sure.
Based on what I've seen in Farmers Branch. I agree with her. There isn't a whole lot of places that necessarily have that, but I also don't see that there's the density that demands it to have it. It's not like Frisco where you're out there off of like Main Street over by where the FC Dallas Stadium's at. There's a lot of density there. You got the retail down on ground floor. You got the apartments up above. So there's density there. This is going to be an isolated building that may not necessarily have the density there to service a lot of people. But aside from that, in terms of your construction schedule, is this something that you're ready to hit the ground running as soon as you get drawings approved by Public Works?
We are, yes.
Okay. So what do you anticipate in terms of?
About an 18-month construction schedule.
18-month construction schedule,
Yep.
breaking ground as soon as you get your.
January, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Yeah, just one, I guess I had noticed that as far as dogs, a lot of people have dogs, I assume you're going to allow pets. Do you have is there any place in the design here where people will be able to walk their dogs?
Like a pet relief
Well,
area.
just, they're going to have to take them out and they're going to have to do their business every morning and every night, right? Just
Yes, yeah, so typically we will, and I don't know where it's included here, but just about at every development that we have, we will include obviously a pet relief area, right? Because that becomes, it's not only a visual thing, but it's also a smell thing, and so there's a lot of forethought that goes into where is that at, what are the materials that are going down there to help offset some of that stuff. So we'll be looking at that, and then we typically have things like pet washing stations and things like that within our garages, so people can go down there and wash their dogs or do whatever else they need to. But yes, we will have a very prominent, easily accessible pet relief area for our residents.
Great, thank you. Any further questions?
Have y'all built anything in Farmers Branch?
Farmers
before?
Branch, no.
No?
Nope, this will be our first project.
Okay. But I agree, Gio, it's a great looking project, really nice. Planting and whatever is kind of one of my things. A great job on the selection of the trees, the shrubs, the plants, the planting, even down to the black rock and whatever. Great job, great job.
Glad to hear. Our architects are in the room here, so I'm sure they're happy to hear it as well.
They're women, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for our applicant? Thank you, you've been very helpful.
Thank you all.
All right, commissioners, anyone have a motion here?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, that's motion to approve the request for a detailed site plan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. And this detailed site plan, so it doesn't need to go to...
This will, Madam Chair, this will go to City Council on January 9th, or Marcos, help me remember the council meeting date. I don't think we have the final dates yet for City Council. January 17th. January 17th.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we'll move to our public hearings. Item D1, conduct a public hearing, consider the request for a detailed site plan with special exceptions for a multifamily residential development on approximately 1.28 acres located at 13290 North Stemmons Freeway, and take appropriate action. Okay, Sarah?
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Sarah Bergman, Senior Planner. Item D1 is a detailed site plan request for a property located at the southwest corner of Jet Street and the I-35 service road, highlighted on the map here. The site is currently vacant and it is part of the Station Area Code, or PD 86. And the proposed development is a 5-story multifamily residential building with 1 level of podium parking and 86 total units above. It'll be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units. The total site density is 67 units per acre, which meets both the minimum for PD 86 and the recommendation of the city's multifamily development policy. I'll get into the details of the building layout, but they are proposing several amenities that are listed here. And you can see most of them on the site plan here as well. So in general, the site is laid out to allow for maximum building frontage along Jet Street and the service road. PD 86 designates Jet Street as a type A frontage, which encourages pedestrian amenities and buildings that are aligned as closely as possible to the street. And so you can see here, this is the footprint for the ground level, which will all be podium parking and a leasing office in the northwest corner. Above will be, I'll just skip ahead a little bit, but 4 levels of residential with amenity spaces on each level. Again, here's the unit breakdown: 40 studio, 42 1-bedroom, and 4 2-bedroom units. And I'd really like to highlight the pedestrian environment along Jet Street. That's a big focus of PD 86, and the applicant has accommodated those requirements by providing a 6-foot sidewalk along Jet Street, 7 new on-street parking spaces, tree plantings along Jet Street, and pedestrian scaled lighting, as well as a couple of benches, street furniture. There is an existing 6-foot sidewalk along the I-35 service road as well, and connectivity is proposed throughout the site, as described here. The minimum parking requirement for PD 86 is 1 1/8 spaces per unit, and the applicant has met this requirement. Primarily with podium structured parking, there are a limited number of surface spaces, 31 along the perimeter of the site, and 7 new on-street spaces on Jet Street. And then you can see, again, the sidewalks along Stemmons and Jet Street, and then they have made an effort to make sure pedestrian connectivity throughout the site is accommodated with walkways surrounding the building and going through the open space area. Here's the floor plan again. And want to highlight the open space that's shown in the center of the site. That's a requirement for PD 86 that at least 15% of the total buildable area be dedicated to open space. And so in the center here is where you can see their swimming pool, barbecue areas, outdoor seating. That meets the 15% minimum requirement. In addition to that, a 15-foot landscape buffer is required along the I-35 service road, which has been provided here. Tree plantings are required every 40 feet, and along Jet Street, tree plantings are required every 30 feet. And so both of those requirements have been met in addition to the 15% open space, and then a dog park is provided down here in the southwest corner. Yeah, this is just highlighting that all of the PD 86 requirements are met. And then with the open space being sort of located between the building and the parking area, a concern for staff was creating a sense of privacy for the residents that are going to be using this area. And so to accommodate that, the applicant is proposing continuous planter boxes along the perimeter of the open space area. So it would start up next to the building and wrap around the entire area. And here's a detailed drawing of what that will look like. In addition, shrubs are proposed along both the southern property line here to provide for screening between the subject property and the commercial development to the south. And then enhanced landscaping is proposed along the base of the podium parking structure, which I'll get into a little more in just a second, but you can see the areas proposed for enhanced landscaping all along the podium parking garage. The proposed building elevations are shown on the screen. This is a modern design with a mixture of building materials, including 2 different colors of brick and a synthetic stucco with concrete finish. To draw attention to the corner of the building, the applicant has provided increased glazing, and this is where the leasing office, as well as all of the amenity spaces on each floor, will be located. So that's a unique feature that really highlights that building corner. And then you can see here one on the southern elevation, and then along the west, which faces the I-35 service road, the applicant is proposing this sort of unique panel design to reduce the appearance of blank facade and provide a unique design element for the building. And really important to highlight is the screening along the podium parking garage. Basically, the entire ground level is dedicated to podium parking, which is, as you know, where the special exception requests are going to come in. And so to mitigate the visual impact of having parking at the ground level rather than, unit entrances or ground floor entries for commercial spaces, the applicant is providing a decorative metal screening as well as that enhanced landscaping. And you can see a detail here. It'll stretch along the entire facade of the building where the podium parking is located. Here are some 3D renderings just showing the northwest corner as well as the western facade along the frontage road. For proposed signage, as you may have seen on the elevation drawings, there are 2 large wall signs proposed along the frontage of I-35. The PD 86 regulations allow for a lot of flexibility for signage along this frontage. There's no maximum on the size of wall signs, and so they have provided 2, and then a smaller sign is proposed above the entrance to the leasing office, and a monument sign is also proposed. Here are some photos of the existing site. Again, it's currently vacant, and you can see the Starbucks and Chipotle development to the south. And finally, the reason why this request is before you for consideration tonight is because 2 special exceptions from the PD 86 standards are required. If it weren't for the special exceptions, the PD actually allows for administrative approval of the site plan. So what you're considering tonight is these 2 special exceptions, and they are similar, so I've grouped them together. The first one is that the PD requires functioning ground floor entries every 75 feet along type A frontages, which would be Jet Street. And the second is that a minimum of 40 and maximum of 90% fenestration was required on the ground floor. So again, due to the size of the site being 1.2 acres, the podium parking layout taking up the majority of the ground floor of the building, and the enhancements to the pedestrian environment along Jet Street that are being provided, such as the screening, enhanced landscaping, street trees, lighting, and street furniture. Staff does support both special exceptions. We view the podium parking as a very important amenity for the project and feel that these special exceptions are warranted. Finally, the I-35 corridor vision study designates the site as part of the station area, which does recommend residential mixed use and entertainment uses, so multifamily does fit this designation. And Jet Street is also called out as a priority for new sidewalks, which would be accomplished with this request. So the proposed development is consistent with the plan recommendations. We did send out 9 zoning notification letters to surrounding property owners, and staff has not received any response as of this meeting. And again, in summary, staff recommends approval of the detailed site plan and the special exception requests, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff? And I believe we have the
Applicant is
applicant
here
here.
as well. Yes.
Would you mind to step forward and? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Christopher Cook. I'm with Niche Development.
Do you have an address?
Oh, an address? Well, we're out of Frisco. Our address, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Do we have questions for the applicant? Gio?
Chris, thank you for joining us today. I think, I think you guys did a really good job with the design in terms of making it work within a tight footprint. Definitely a big fan of the podium structured parking. I think that definitely works really well with the site constraints. Also, I like what you're doing in terms of how you're hiding it, in terms of what you're doing on the ground floor to at least integrate that into the design. So kudos to your designers. I don't really have a whole lot of concerns here. The only thing I did want to just bring up, and I'm hoping that this is the first of many more developments in our station area that can continue to add to the density that's required to make that area successful. But as of right now, there's definitely a lot of transient traffic in terms of the people that are within that area. And I saw the fencing that you're providing in terms of your perimeter around the building. The only thing I thought is maybe like an 8-foot fence would be a little bit more of a deterrent. Obviously, within time, hopefully that tends to not be an issue, but there definitely is, an issue right now within the community of Farmers Branch and the surrounding areas. So safety was something that I thought about, especially with the proximity to the highway. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a little bit, actually. Previous to us, we cleared the lot. If you remember, probably 6 months ago or more, there was quite a bit of trees, and actually when we did that, we found there was folks kind of living in that area. And so whenever we took all of that out and cleaned it out, we've noticed just by, cleaning out that transient, amount of traffic has come down. So I think that it's a little bit of chicken and egg. I think that as we develop the area, it kind of extends already, obviously, what Chipotle and Starbucks has done. So hopefully it'll continue to go down, and of course our neighbors to the north are doing the same. So, but I think there's good consideration for exactly what you're talking about. The objective that we have is safety, obviously, first. So I think that as we move along, we'll consider that and kind of look at it objectively as we get closer.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking. I'm not definitely going to mandate it, but I think it's something for you to consider.
Well, I think we have the same concern that you do as well.
So the 35 project, it's currently being expanded. There's overhead lines that run parallel to the frontage road. Are you guys, I know that the contractor's planning on keeping all that aerial. Are you guys keeping that aerial as well, or are you guys putting it underground within the limits of your property?
So we actually just reached out to Encore last week to inquire about the process of doing that. So it's a very small, actually, the lineage the linear feet of that is, and we're working on some other developments where we're doing the same thing. So I think speaking with Allison, we agree that we'll, manage that with, it's not an issue.
I asked because there's been some times where we've missed it on our end in terms of just in that area. Like we
Right.
missed it with the Starbucks and the Chipotle, unfortunately, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think we would agree with you from just a view perspective.
Optics,
Barry,
the
it would
aesthetics of the area,
make
I
it
think
look
it'd look a lot cleaner. And I bring it
Absolutely.
up now because I know that it has to get moved, and if it has to get moved, why have them relocate it above ground, whereas you could probably take advantage of having them just bury it?
Agreed.
So just something for you to be aware of.
Yeah, we're already, I think, running a water line along that same area, so I think the, in the theme of trenching and building infrastructure there, it fits
Okay.
right in.
And then the last question is, assuming this gets through the approval process, what does your construction schedule look like in terms of breaking ground and getting the project?
So we have all the drawings, basically, we're waiting for full approval here, but we've already engaged with all of our GCs, multiple GCs in gaining the budget. Once we have that in line, we've already got financing in line and things, we're hoping for Q2. We're as anxious as anyone. We were originally hoping to break dirt back in August, so we're, as soon as the process is done, we're ready to go.
But you've yet to select a GC, right?
Sorry?
You have not
We
selected a
have
GC yet?
Well, we're down, we went from 6 to 2 just through that process, and so we're just a few weeks away from
Gotcha.
gaining that final piece.
And in terms of construction schedule, what's your contract, or what are you thinking?
18 to 24 months.
Okay.
It's type 1 construction, so it should actually go pretty quick. We're hoping that even 18 months is longer than we're hoping we could actually get it done closer to 12 months, but we're telling everyone 18 to 24 just in the event that we run into issues. I mean, there's less supply issues now than there was 6 months ago, so we think it's a more
Outside the podium itself, the deck, the rest of it's stick-built, right?
No.
No, you're going concrete all the way?
Yeah, well, concrete or steel type 1, because of the height requirement. That's
Oh, it's
part of the challenges that we had because of the small, 1.3 acres. We had to go up instead of obviously out, and then that created, the need for type 1 construction.
I asked this question to the previous developer. What did you assume in terms of your rents per square foot for this for this property?
So everything we've done from the construct of the unit sizes as well as unit types has been, we've worked very closely with our manager, Cushman & Wakefield. Our average right now that we have targeted is $247 a foot. Obviously, it varies between, the studios and such, but that's the average.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions for the applicant?
So with the construction on I-35, how does your construction schedule marry up to what's being done right in front of your building? Are you trying to get it done where it's going to be complete, or do you really care what that schedule is?
So right now, Jet Street's used as kind of like a little escape corridor for folks getting onto the freeway right there. We, hopefully the timing will align. I mean, these, I would venture to say their project's going to last a little longer than ours. But right now, it's functional kind of as it is. Whenever we go to upgrade the street, which, will be kind of a joint venture between all of us, that'll create some, kind of a few weeks worth of issues probably. But I think from a timing perspective, I think our project will be fine with it. It's difficult to give your guest on TxDOT, but,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners. We will now open the public hearing. Thank you for that, Shruva. Apologies. Any discussion in the public hearing? Okay. Seeing none, then we will move to a motion
from the commissioners? Oh, sorry, close the public meeting. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
I move to approve the detailed site plan and special exceptions.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, any opposed? Thank you. And so this will then go, this is our final, we have the final approval. Thank you. I recall you saying that, Sarah. All right. Next up, item D2, we will conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a specific use permit for outside storage on approximately 3.36 acre property located at 13998 Diplomat Drive and take appropriate action.
Thank you. Sarah Bergman, Senior Planner. Item D2 is a request for a specific use permit for outside storage at 13998 Diplomat Drive. The property is highlighted on the map here, and it has frontages on 3 public streets: Valwood to the north, Diplomat Drive along the west, and Delegate Drive on the south. This aerial is a little outdated, but there is currently an office building on the northern portion of the site that was recently constructed for Manhattan Construction Company. And the southern portion of the site is vacant, and that is the area proposed for this outside storage area. Here is the site plan that shows both the existing office building and the proposed outside storage area. The site plan for the existing office building was approved in June 2021 and construction completed July 2022. Currently, there is a temporary certificate of occupancy for that building contingent on site landscaping being installed. And when this request was considered by the commission in June 2021, it was specified that no outside storage was proposed on this site at that time or in the future. And PD 22, which I'll sort of discuss in a minute, is pretty restrictive when it comes to outside storage. And so that's something that was discussed with the applicant at the time of this site plan. So for the current request, the outside storage area is proposed to be 20,658 square feet. An 8-foot masonry screening wall with landscaping is proposed, and the storage area would be composed of a permeable gravel surface and used to store shipping containers for construction materials. No other vehicle or equipment storage is proposed. So PD 22 regulates outside storage by requiring a specific use permit for any amount of outside storage, whether accessory or the primary use. In this case, the proposal is for an accessory storage area, and PD 22 specifies that outside storage cannot be located between a building and an adjacent public right-of-way. And so given that this site has frontage on 3 public right-of-ways, it's really difficult to make outside storage feasible on this site. So you can see here that the existing office building is smaller than the outside storage area, 20,658 square feet compared to only 12,500 for the office building. And the storage area extends beyond the front facade of the office building towards Diplomat Drive, and it's also located between the office building and Delegate Drive. And so those 2 items are concerns given the PD 22 regulations, and they're ultimately what is leading to the staff recommendation of denial in this case. And then one more thing to note is that the height of the storage cannot extend above the height of the screening wall. Here is just a detail of the layout that is proposed within the storage area. Again, this would be used only for shipping containers, and there are 2 sizes shown. All of them would be a maximum of 8 feet tall. These are 40 feet long, and these are 20 feet. This is an excerpt from the landscape plan. It is very similar to the landscape plan approved for the office building on the northern portion of the site. The original landscape plan called for 39 street trees, which meets the PD 22 requirement of 1 tree every 30 feet along the street frontages. This plan is showing 38 street trees, and the reduction is because of the new drive that's proposed on Delegate Drive. But other than that, the species and the number of trees is very similar to the original plan. They're proposing to stagger them as shown on the drawing. And they are also proposing enhanced landscaping along the perimeter of the storage area to supplement screening with the masonry wall. Here's an enlarged version where you can see that layout a little clearer. And these are the proposed elevations for the masonry wall. Again, it's an 8-foot tall stucco painted wall, and then there's a 30-foot metal gate proposed at that access point along Delegate Drive. And here are some existing site photos. You can see the Manhattan Construction Building on the northern portion of the site. This photo is taken from the Delegate Drive right-of-way, as well as this one, and then this would be off of Diplomat Drive, so you can see it's a large vacant area currently. This site is within the West Side Plan, which designates it as an industrial district. So the office use that's existing on the site is consistent with those plans, or with the West Side Plan, but the proposed storage use being larger than the existing office use kind of negates that as the primary use, and outside storage as a primary use is not supported by the plan or by PD 22. On December 1st, 9 zoning notification letters were mailed to surrounding property owners. We have received 6 letters in response. 5 of those are in opposition, and of the 5, 3 are within the 200-foot notification boundary, 2 are outside of that boundary, and then 1 letter of support has been received, and that was for a site within the notification boundary. And again, staff is recommending denial of the request for the primary reasons that the storage area is located between the office building and public right-of-way, and it is significantly larger than the office building. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm not sure if the applicant is in attendance. I don't think so. Go ahead.
Chair Riley, if I may just add to what Ms. Bergman just presented about the notification. Just to add on that, with the 3 opposition letters received within the notification boundary, as per our zoning ordinance, that does trigger the supermajority rule because it is counting towards more than 20% of the properties within the notification area, and that automatically requires a supermajority vote of the commission to approve this request. That's all I had.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further questions for staff? Go ahead.
Have you spoke with the applicant regarding any adjustments to either enlarging their office space or reducing the storage area that they currently have, and as a remediation for any of this?
Sure, yes, that was definitely part of the discussion as the site plan was being reviewed. Our suggestion to the applicant was, 1, to reduce the size of the storage area so that the square footage is less than the office building and it can fit the definition of an accessory use. And 2, to adjust the positioning of the storage area so it doesn't extend closer to Diplomat Drive than the office building. And in discussions, the applicant indicated that reducing the size of the storage area beyond what's currently shown would render it sort of useless for their purposes, is how they've explained it to us, that they really need this size to make the construction of it feasible.
So they weren't willing to adjust in either increasing their office space or, okay.
That's correct. And they understood that staff was not going to support this layout and wanted to move forward with the request.
Thank you. Any further questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, even if they got what they wanted here, it's being pushed all the way to the opposite end of the lot from their building. Just seems interesting that, and therefore then now that whole lot is taken up kind of in a, seems like almost a strange way, seems like a more efficient use would have been pushing the whole thing back up, maybe contiguous with the building, and then you'd have a whole nother lot. Did they talk about why they put it out where they did in the lot?
I think with the site plan already being approved for the office building and that's constructed and the size that they need for their outdoor storage, this was the only location that they saw feasible. Again, it's really hard to make outdoor storage work in any location on this site because of the requirement that it be behind a building and not between the building and a street frontage. And so they're really, it's limited as far as where outside storage could go, and that's sort of why it was discussed with them at the time the original site plan came through, that outdoor storage would not be supported on this site.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions for staff? And it appears we do not have the applicant here. Okay. So we'll open a public meeting. Hear any comments from the public? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, first and foremost, thank you for your time. I know you're volunteers, and a lot of people might be at home, preferable to this, so thanks for your time. My name is Weldon Davis. I am a property owner, commercial property owner in Valwood. I own the property at 13988 Diplomat Drive, immediately south of this, and I own 13859 south and west side of this. My address, I apologize for that, ma'am. My address is 8150 North Central Expressway, Suite 835, Dallas 75206. With all due respect, I want to correct or expand on something that Sarah said. Outside storage is specifically excluded in PD 22, whether primary or accessory use. So the inference that it could get smaller does not make it acceptable. I gave to Sarah, and I don't know if she distributed to you or not, letters. Sort of the facts speak for themselves in this. An outside storage yard for some materials is good, but this is a construction company, probably one of the best construction companies in our nation, by the way. But that doesn't discount the fact that a storage yard for construction is construction materials. Whether they say they're going to stay in a container or not, they're construction materials. And once they get there, what's the city going to do? Slap their hands with a small fine? No. Other thing is the slab, the paving they're going to put on that. It's going to be a constant dust problem and issue. So I appreciate your time. Just wanted to primarily clarify again that exclusion is not just a primary, but it's accessory or primary. Thank you for your time again.
Thank you. Go right ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dan Cook, and my home address is 200 Stone Canyon Court in Richardson, Texas. I represent Satco Products, the company immediately to the west of this property. I've represented them for more than 30 years. And they've asked me to appear before you and object to this change. We don't believe that it's consistent with the park and with the use in the immediate area right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments in the public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to reject the SUP as presented today.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion on the matter? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor of the rejection? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we'll hear item D3, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a specific use permit and associated detailed site plan allowing vehicle repair use located at 3607 Garden Brook Drive and take appropriate action.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the Commissioners. Chris Webb, Business Development Specialist with the Planning and Economic Development Department. Taking a quick look at the SUP request for agenda item D3. This is going to be a SUP request for vehicle repair use. I know on the aerial map we're seeing the full property, but really this is going to only be for 3607 Garden Brook Drive, which is the kind of just at the very far south eastern corner of this building. Approximately 12,000 square foot light industrial space, Currently, Swedish Auto is taking up that space, and they've been there, located there since 1988. And there was this kind of went through a series of multiple interim SUPs. That's not what's being requested for today. We're looking at a full SUP, not on an interim basis. The last interim SUP was approved for this site in 2012 and expired in 2015. The proposed activity on this site will be very much what it has been since 1988. General maintenance. The main difference is going to be, instead of working on Volvos, the applicant actually specializes on Mercedes passenger vehicles. But nonetheless, it's going to be kind of general maintenance, suspension, brake repair, alignments, and electrical diagnostic work. No body repairs, no paint work is going to be involved with this operation here. And there will be limited outside storage. Generally, what you see kind of in this picture in the top right, where you see the ice cream truck and some Volvo passenger cars, all of that is going to be removed. There's also currently a storage trailer and a boat located on the site that is also going to be removed from this. The only limited outside storage would be the possibility of maybe 1 or 2 overnight drop-offs a month. And the applicant has mentioned that he doesn't believe it's going to be something that happens often. It would be a very occasional basis that we would see that. As far as number of employees, currently the applicant is operating at 4515 McEwen Road and has 5 employees, and that's how many would be transferred over to this operation as well. However, that could grow to as many as 10 employees over time. And the proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then every other Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The floor plan that's also on this drawing really is very similar to what the existing floor plan is. There aren't any major alterations proposed with this site. It is going to remain very much as it is currently. As far as the site plan goes, there are 43 parking spaces to service this specific site. And there are also, as far as landscaping is concerned, currently 18 mature trees kind of surrounding this entire corner. And then when it comes to just kind of how the operation or maintenance would go on the vehicles, there is a concrete ramp and a dock door on the side that vehicles can be brought into the building for repair work. No major site changes are being proposed currently by the applicant, other than the reduction of the existing outside storage and eventually an update to signage on the building. However, that has not been proposed as part of this SUP, but will nonetheless go through the permitting process with our Community Services Department. At this time, the applicant's not proposing any changes to the landscaping or to the existing floor plan. And again, no real facade changes as far as what the existing facade is. The overall central area plan, which is what this property falls under, does call for the gradual transition to retail uses in this specific area. However, the surrounding land uses within this property and really on all properties surrounding this are still light industrial in nature. And even on this property, at least 4 other auto-related uses are currently ongoing as an active use within this property. So while it may not be supported specifically by the central area plan, the vehicle repair use is consistent with other surrounding uses for this site. We did send out 117 zoning notification letters. As of now, we have not received any feedback or received any letters in support or in opposition of this SUP request. And when it comes to our recommendation, we do recommend approval of the specific use permit and the associated detailed site plan. However, we do request the conditions be made or added, that irrigation be installed to the existing landscape islands for this site, and also because of the visibility that the parking lot has to the surrounding street, we do request that some 3-foot tall shrubs in between the trees be added as well to provide some additional screening of the parking lot. And if you have, and I guess all of that also prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. So that's all I have as far as the presentation goes, but if you do have any questions for staff, I'm more than happy to answer anything.
Any questions?
Just to make sure I heard this correctly, you sent 117 letters and not one letter of approve or deny either way?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing, so we will commence to open the public hearing. Any comments from the public wishing to speak? Right ahead.
Hi, I'm the owner, operator of Modern Mercedes, repair specialist, trying to get the special use permit. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, yes, for the applicant, apologies.
I'm currently located at 4515 McEwen Road, Farmers Branch, which is off of Midway, just a little bit north of 635.
And would you provide us your name?
Remington Sepp, sorry.
Thank you.
No, it's Remington Steel. Parents were a big fan.
I do
Go
have a
ahead.
question. So do you run a business like this right now?
Yes. Yeah, currently we're operating, subleasing some space in a place called Dallas Automotive Storehouse. We're currently operating out of about 3,000 square feet, so we are, we've been operating for about 5 years now at that location, and
Where is it?
4515 McEwen Road.
Your old one? The one now is on McEwen?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
And if we pass this, I hope you have cars in every one of these parking places. You've got a huge amount of parking places.
Now, volume-wise, we don't do huge volume, so unfortunately, we're not going to fill it up with.
Just a wish, yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Okay. My only other comment I have as far as the shrubbery and stuff like that, currently there's some older trees there. That is kind of a blind corner when you're pulling out on there. And as far as when you're pulling vehicles in and out of there, having bushes, when you pull out does, pose a little bit of a safety issue as far as, having good visibility. So that's going to be my only comment. As to everything else is good.
That may not be a bad comment. Plus, your trees are very mature, your grass is growing and all of that. It looked nice. So even without a watering system, it seems to be doing well. So it's well established. So if you did put in bushes, what would you put in? Any idea?
I mean, I would more go for some ivy, just some ground coverage. I know. Yeah, I don't.
You don't need ivy because you have grass. So
Okay.
okay, that's okay.
All right.
Well, it sounds like, your preference, the way this is written, right, the staff recommendation is to require the bushes, right? And you're saying that you would prefer not to do that because it could potentially create a visual hazard.
Yeah.
So is that something that we should consider removing as a requirement?
Just to clarify, Mr. Sepp, are you talking about the entry-exit points, like around the driveways? Because that's where you usually would have a visibility triangle, not on all the...
Yes, well, that, and then about, on average, 4 times a year, a car actually ends up in that parking lot from the street, unintentionally from a wreck. There was actually one this weekend as well. So coming around a little bit on the southern side, there's just kind of a blind corner. There's actually there's a stop sign where it hits Garden Brook, where it's a T intersection, and the stop sign isn't necessarily the problem, but if you can't, just people speed on that road, and that was brought up to me by the previous owner.
If I'm reading this plan correctly, and if I'm understanding your comment, are you talking about inside the site itself? When people are trying to go through.
Well, if you're going south on Garden Brook,
Okay.
there's no stop sign there. So if you're going to turn left there and you can't see anyone sitting at that stop sign, it could prove to be an issue.
I guess I'm failing to understand how the shrubs are gonna worsen that visibility on Garden Brook.
People are looking through here.
That's the
Yeah.
pointer actually works.
Yeah,
curve.
that, right.
This
Yeah.
corner.
It's this corner here.
Yeah.
So this would be the,
It's not a straight view, see?
this would be the area that the, Mr. Sepp is referring to as far as the visibility. You have Garden Brook coming here with Venture Drive intersecting it, kind of in the middle of this turn. And he's saying that this visibility here would be, I guess, could be impeded by the
Closing off.
3 feet shrubs.
Yeah.
Closing off the view. That's a curve, so they're coming around that curve, and then, yeah, I can see that might be.
That is a weird area, because a lot of people go left there onto Oak Brook, and some people going to like the industrial places continue down Garden Brook. And there's a
Pull
lot
up the aerial.
Mm-hmm.
I said it before during the meeting, I wasn't really in favor of mandating us doing this in terms of, before even him bringing this up. I just think that I didn't see the need to make him put in the shrubs and the sprinkler system outside of just bringing it up to our current standards. But the safety issue now that he's bringing up, I mean, it can be an issue. Just based on the sight distances you have there coming out of that driveway as it pertains to that traffic coming from Ventura Drive to Garden Brook.
It is up to the commission if you desire to put that condition or not.
Like to make a motion to approve the SUP minus removing the requirement to install irrigation and additional landscaping.
Are there any seconds to Commissioner? Commissioner Bertle has made a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of approving the SUP with no conditions? In favor? All right, all opposed? None? Oh, that was unanimous, that's right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, appreciate it. All right, and that takes us to adjournment. It is presently 8:06 PM. Thank you all.